WrestleTalk!
Guns up and scissor me daddy ass. Because they're together now.
It needs work as a catchphrase. I don't know if there's enough t-shirt space.
No? You don't?
Yeah.
But you
Guns up and scissor. It's just maybe a long one. I like a long t-shirt dress situation.
You could do it like the core, do it all in diagonal.
Sometimes a little core memory goes away.
I think that's the way you get round this.
Diagonal.
It's all diagonal across the shirt.
Just around it.
Yeah.
A spiral.
Spiral works. Or just a big wall of text. So that it's more text than it is t-shirt.
Great. Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to the AEW review of... No. Welcome to the WrestleTalk Podcast review of AEW Collision. Apologies if I feel like I'm all out of sorts.
Luke Owen has not stopped all... I was this morning in Dublin. I've done a lot today. None of that compares to you.
And you're too kind. We've been recording WrestleTalk Extra for, since 11. It's now 3.
Yeah.
And I stopped for half an hour in there because I needed to finish watching Collision.
Mm-hmm.
And then
also have sustenance to be able to carry on.
I was shoving a sandwich in my mouth watching the main event. Great kick by Danielson. So apologies if I feel a bit out of sorts. But welcome to the WrestleTalk Podcast review of AEW Collision. Please do press the thumbs up, give us a subscribe as well, leave a comment down below with what you thought. Join our wonderful community with your thoughts if you're watching this live. And if you want to have your thoughts read out on the air, it is WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out all of them above the $5 amounts. So yeah, we're here to review AEW Collision, which was your formulaic Collision show, which is that you had the stars out having squash matches, and sometimes you had the stars facing off against the other stars, which is usually reserved for the main event. And this angle here almost felt out of sorts for Collision.
Insofar as it was an angle.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like, this was furthering something that happened on Dynamite. And that often just doesn't happen with Collision.
No, that was slight shade, I should say as well, because I think there was another one with FTR and House of Black later on in the show as well.
But that's a Collision...
That's a Collision exclusive story.
That's a Collision exclusive story.
I don't want to bury the lead, maybe we'll talk about this after we talk about the actual story, the meat of what was going on. But Kenny McIntosh had a tweet earlier on that I saw that just sparked a thought while we were... And it's interesting that you brought it up, which is that Collision doesn't feel like appointment television.
It's not must-see TV.
And part of that, I was then reading people's responses. Some people say like, oh, I really enjoy watching it every week because of this format, or some people being like, it needs to feel like, a soft brand split like it did in the early days of Collision. And I was just kind of interested by that conversation. I'd love to hear what the chat has to say as well, and sending your UltraChats for it. But for me, this was a really interesting episode to point to because of a continued story from Dynamite, which is so rare on this show.
It's so rare to see, but I kind of agree with Kenny's sentiment on there. Like, what Collision is a tribute to Saturday wrestling shows of old, which is the stars do squash matches. Like, that's what WWF Superstars was. It was just the superstars having squash matches, and they'll cut promos and put each other over, and then that makes you buy the pay-per-view, so you can then see the stars fight the other stars. And WCW did the same thing on their TNT shows and stuff, and when they were on cable and whatnot, it's the stars have squash matches. It's a loving tribute to that. But we are in 2023, 2024, and I think TV audiences and TV desires have changed somewhat over 30 years. That if you do this sort of show, people look at it as like, I don't see the point of this because there's nothing here that's moving stories along. Imagine if you're watching a week-to-week TV series, like, okay, The Last of Us, for example. If you looked at The Last of Us, but every other episode was just filler episode. You know what I mean? So like,
the second series of Lost, right? If I can use that analogy,
always comes back to Lost.
That's because it was one of the best shows in the history of the world until it wasn't. When you think about the second series of Lost, the first episode was great. The second, third, and fourth episodes were the same episode but from different perspectives. So by the time you took 5 weeks before you got anywhere, which I think pushed a lot of people's button. It pushed their patience to the limit, kind of thing. This, I would more liken it to like when you're watching. We've got a new desk.
Oh yeah, that's actually from next door.
That's Thriller. So sorry. That was deeply unprofessional. Flight brain.
And when he says desk as well, he means mixing desk.
Not just a new table.
It's for visual mixing. It's what we were using for WrestleTalk Extra.
Between you having worked so hard and me being like 24 hours behind my schedule, it's going to be an interesting show.
Just in case anyone didn't catch that, Dan was in Dublin this morning. You were supposed to be here last night. But,
I was
about a storm, and
the storm trapped me in Dublin overnight. I was very comfy. I had a lovely hotel, but
Editor Terry's stuck in France at the moment.
She had a worse experience than me.
She got diverted to France, and apparently, like, the plane ride was awful.
So when I came into land this morning, in the air, absolutely fine. But when we hovered over London for a while, buffeted about by the wind, and when I came into land, we sort of did this kind of thing. So it was dicey, but yeah, that's why my brain's also all over the place. Bringing it back to Collision, why it feels like for me, it's like when we're in the middle of the Australian Open, the tennis. I'm not watching every single one of the first ones because I know that your big players are going to probably be bashing their way through in straight sets, kind of thing. But when we get to quarterfinals, I'm paying close attention. And I think that for me is. There are positives to that, and this show was full of positives because I had a lot of fun with all of these matches. But there is also negatives to that where it's like I have to watch it every single week because we do a review. Would I watch it every single week if we didn't do a review?
And I think a key to that, for me at the very least, I should say, is my experience of Collision is I don't need to watch this live. I often don't need to watch it the day after.
Yeah.
If I've got time on a Sunday, like if I'm, the kid's not around because like my wife's gone out to do something with the kid, or like, I mean, usually the three of us are just like doing stuff, so I don't really have like a lot of just me time on a Sunday. But if I'm like doing some housework and putting the vacuum around or something, I'm like, I've got 10 minutes and stuff. I'll throw Collision on because I'll probably get through 2 matches on Collision, or whatever. I've got 20 minutes or something. But I don't need to watch it on a Sunday. I don't desperately need to find out what happens next in a storyline. I can quite happily save it until Monday. And then I watch it on Monday morning before I come in to do this review. I think if this wasn't my job, I would just watch it throughout the week. Because I do like Collision.
Yeah, there's great wrestling on it.
Because that's the thing. Collision, oftentimes I like more than Dynamite. Because Dynamite, because it is trying to be must-see, got to watch it live TV, it can be more hit and miss. But because Collision has just got a very safe template, it becomes an incredibly reliable 2 hours worth of wrestling. So I can very much just happily enjoy it throughout the week. But yeah, and that's what I would do if this wasn't my job. But as this is my job, I do watch it on the Monday. And I'm looking at the live chat here, and it's kind of like 50-50 in some ways of just like, I don't need that sort of TV in 2024. And others are like, I actually just like that that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's easy watching. It's easy viewing.
I think it depends on how you consume your wrestling, to be honest with you. Because if you are someone who wants... I'm
just going to correct someone. You're thinking of the wrong superstars. Someone said like that was Evan Bourne versus Mike Knox. And I'm talking about like the 80s.
Oh, not the... Yeah.
80s WWF like TV.
Yeah. I wasn't around then. I'm so young. So are you, actually. Yeah, I think it depends on how you consume your telly, really. If you're like, I want a bit of wrestling to watch just to have some wrestling and not really be that invested. Like sometimes, again, I use another sports reference. Sometimes, it's like Burnley versus Sheffield United. I have no interest in that.
I just really want to watch some football right
It'll
now.
be nice to watch some football, so I'll put that on, kind of thing.
I just want to see the green.
Yeah, it's perfectly valid. But I think Collision, by virtue of its stature and certainly what it was when it first came around, almost demands a little bit more than a Rampage or a Dark.
You see, I disagree with that because the one thing that I say to Collision's positive on that is it's never changed. Collision has always been this show, even when it was the CM Punk show. It was always this show, which is squash matches and a big-time main event.
That's true. So I feel like it had more story, though, back in the day.
I think it had stories, but like I think the main story... It would have
the day.
Back in the day, it was not even a year old, this show. But even then, it would have like one story. It was whatever the CM Punk story was. It's him versus Ricky Starks. It's FTR versus Bullet Club Gold. Like at the moment, the story of Collision at the moment is FTR versus the House of Black. Like that's your main story. And actually kind of like the rise of Daniel Garcia along with FTR. And you could probably now look and say, Eddie versus Danielson. That's going to be, that'll be a true. Collision story moving forward. But really like that Collision has been the same show from, because I remember when I was first reviewing Collision, And I was like, really? It's just a bunch of squash matches than a main event? And the argument was like, yeah, it's because that's what Saturday night wrestling is. And that's what it's a tribute to that. So I like it, but I get why people aren't not asked. That's not the right word. But like it is not appointment viewing.
No,
and I think standards have changed so much that TV needs to feel like appointment viewing, particularly as it's a live show.
Do I watch WWE main event? No. Do I watch NXT more often than not? Right? Do I watch Raw and SmackDown every week? Yeah. I feel like AEW is at a point where it can have two big shows that are appointment viewing every week, and also have your Darks, your Rampage, your business. And I think more pertinently, I think it's got the roster for it. I think the roster is big enough that you could have two shows that feel appointment,
as opposed to just being things that are just like, like Roderick Strong beating Matt Sydal on this show, while very, very, it's very entertaining, albeit very short. It's there to fuel a Dynamite story.
Yeah. So it's an interesting, as we stare into this new year, and especially with the rankings being announced in the middle of this show.
Right in the middle, like right, basically the end of this show. They were just like, oh yeah, by the way, the rankings are coming back. Yeah. Tony Khan's just put it on Twitter.
He's not watching. He's not running the show. He's too busy tweeting.
Jinder Mahal living rent free in that man's head.
But like, it's kind of an interesting period in AEW's continued growth. It's his fifth year. The idea that they're bringing back the ranking system, they're coming clean off the C2, which was such a massive success. And
C2 did make Collision feel like appointment TV.
Yeah, I agree with that. That is very pertinent.
It hasn't had that since the C2 ended. The only thing I would say is different to comparing it to main event or even to NXT, although I think that's slightly unfair on my part. There's always a cracking main event. Like main event is.
Oh, but to be clear, I see it more as a SmackDown. That's what I'm saying. More, but specifically in early days, SmackDown.
It should feel like what SmackDown is now.
Yeah.
And even then, SmackDown feels like a lesser show to Raw.
I agree.
Even though it's got arguably some bigger stars than Raw does.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Like that sort of mid 2000s period SmackDown, where it's like there's got amazing wrestling on it, but people are more interested in what's happening on Raw.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
That's where I think I'm at with it as well. And I think they should be equal shows in terms of stature, but they aren't. Whether you agree with that, I don't think I do. I think I would rather this feel like a more important show than it is, but I still enjoy it.
Yeah. At the end of the day,
at least I always get a great main event.
That's the important
and that's it. Like, and perhaps that's a really low bar, and I think it is a bit of a low bar. But at the end of every show, when there's this cracking main event, I'm just like, oh man, I'm really glad I watched that.
That's it. I always have a nice time watching it, and maybe to hammer the point home, that's all it needs to be for Saturday night.
Oh, so there, remember Andrade feuded with House of Black? Yeah, it's good.
That was a Collision story, yeah.
But the thing we actually want to talk about here to open our show is this kind of like an angle that happened on this show that is furthering on from something that's been happening on Dynamite and on Collision, actually. It's been a cross-promotion show, a cross-brand show. Bullet Club Gold came out for a promo. They won the ROH Six-Man Tag Team Championships on Dynamite this past Wednesday. And it was Kidd to introduce Cardboard Juice Robinson, which is a bit of fun because Cardblade's been retired now that Jay White's back. Juice Board. And out comes the Acclaim, and they pitch being a supergroup again. And I really enjoyed, because he didn't make a big deal of this, Jay goes and asks Cardboard Juice Robinson what he thinks. Billy Gunn's still doing, I think it was Max Caster still doing his promo. So the focus is on him. But Jay White just walks over and you can see him talking to the Cardboard.
Yeah.
It actually really made me laugh. And then they put over, it's like, look, you're the ROH Six-Man Tag Titles. We're the AEW Trios Champions. I don't see why we can also be the AEW Tag Team Champions. The Guns can be the ROH Tag Team Champions. I think Daddy Ass could do some singles gold in 2024. And why isn't Jay White the AEW World Champion? And it's this sort of like moment and they're sort of thinking about it, they discuss it, and they decide, yeah, let's do it. And they form the Bang Bang Super Gang.
Strength in numbers team.
That's it. United against the common enemy of the Undisputed Kingdom, which I think is my main criticism I would levy against this segment. That should be the driving force of this, is they were both taken out by the Undisputed Kingdom. I think that AEW, through kind of no fault of their own, because it's built around two guys that are injured and can't really have the match that they want out of this. They can't do MJF versus Adam Cole and can't do it for a while. I think this group has lost so much of its luster since World's End, and I think they are dropping the ball with it slightly. But a way to have kept some of that alive is by having these two forces come together, not just to win gold, but to stop these guys. Stop this force that's ruining the TV show.
Yeah, I do feel there's almost something circumstantial about the baby faceness of like Jay White in this instance and B.C.G. That for me makes it all feel a bit rushed and a bit like, oh, okay, like I'm not averse to this because I think they're all incredibly talented on the mic, especially I think they're going to be engaging together as a group. But all right, I kind of was a bit like, okay, do you know? And then to your point, elsewhere in the show we just sort of have Roddy having a match with Matt Sydal, and I'm like, those trios belts have been put on Bullet Club Gold for some reason, or because belts are belts. You know, there's a lot of confused question marks on this that I have.
I get the impression, and this is just me. This is just the way I said this on the Dynamite review. I get the impression this is going to lead to a title unification.
Probably
because they don't need all of the 6-man titles.
They don't need them at all. Full stop. Really,
I'd argue they do need the trios championships because I like trios belts.
I like trios matches, but I mean, what have they done with them since winning them?
Well, they were designed for the Elite to win, and then unfortunately the Elite got into a fight with CM Punk backstage, and then everything, and it sort of snowballed from there. Really,
I mean specifically, what have the Acclaimed done with them since winning them in Wembley?
They turned them into scissors.
They really have done that.
Well, I mean, you can't argue with that, Dan.
No, that is factually correct.
If anything, they've done more than the House of Black did.
Yeah, I don't know. I certainly think unifying them is...
Wembley they won them.
They won them at Wembley, mate.
Bloody hell.
And it was fun when it was happening.
It was, but that was such a long time ago.
And they did a little bit at the beginning of we held them for 69 days, and we all went, ha, ha, ha.
Oh, it is a funny number.
Yeah, but it's been a long time since those 69 days. And very little has gone down, and it does make me go like, well, why couldn't they keep him on House of Black, and then you've got FTR and Danny Garcia against House of Black? Do you know what I mean? I'm sat here questioning, is there a division that warrants these belts? Even though I like trios matches,
I would argue there can be, they just don't. In the same way that there could be a women's tag title scene.
Yeah,
there just isn't, and they don't.
Yeah, that's true. But then to sort of widen the point out a little bit more, I feel like you could do something with the Undisputed Kingdom where Adam Cole is sort of like, he's in his chair and he's grizzled old man. I can see his beard. He's in his chair. He's directing. He doesn't have. He can still be a presence even if he's not wrestling each week. And he can be using Roddy as his sort of lackey to continue a feud rather than lumping these two together to sort of get us there at some point and make the best of it. It all feels a little bit mazy, and that's something that I've found a bit with Tony Khan's booking over the past year or so, is that a lot of it feels sort of going around the garden fence, whatever the phrase is, to get us there at some point eventually, because we've got to spin our wheels until we can. It's been a hallmark of his for a little while. I think this is an example of it. Again, I like the team.
Yeah, for me, it's more a case of, I think it's missed the impetus as why they should be a team, which really you should be putting these two groups together to emphasize the threat of the Undisputed Kingdom.
Because they need to band together.
Because they need to band together to take these guys out. They were throwing them through great glass windows. You know, they took Jay White off of TV. Like, they should be coming together to take out this force. But this force just feels like a bunch of lads, and that's not helping. And like, so you don't
Am
need
I misremembering? Sorry to interrupt you. Am I misremembering? Have the Undisputed Kingdom faced Bullet Club Gold in a match?
No, they haven't had like any matches
they done
together.
The Acclaimed?
They haven't done it with the Acclaimed either.
So that's exactly what you're saying. They could get there in the end.
On that first episode, when the Undisputed Kingdom came out, so the first episode following World's End, Bullet Club Gold came out and was like, look, you know, I think what you did to Max is really cool because we'd have done the same thing. I just don't appreciate being collateral damage in that, because they were the first group that they attacked. And then they wanted to have a match with them. And then the Acclaimed came out, because the Acclaimed also had been thrown through, you know, glass windows and stuff by the Undisputed Kingdom. And that's how they sort of found themselves being this unlikely, like, oh, we both have a common enemy here. And I think that's been lost.
I think that's also it's taken A and C and missed B. And B for me is the matches, where it's like, okay, well, let's sort of the Acclaimed has a go first, and then BCG has a goal.
So you're asking for you don't want any build? You just want them to have matches? Is that
no.
what you're asking for?
I want
it sounds like, Dan, you're just advocating to have matches with no build.
To me, the progression is we can't beat the Undisputed Kingdom individually. They're actually a lot more powerful than we're giving them credit for. If we're going to take these people out and get our revenge, we need to unite. That's the build, that bit there.
Dan, I guarantee you, if they'd have advertised Bullet Club Gold versus Undisputed Kingdom on TV, the first question would be, where's the build?
I don't know.
You would do, because Twitter's full of fucking idiots.
I think you can have build as well. I'm talking. There's two different builds. There's builds to those matches, and then there's builds to this supergroup.
I agree.
Do you think the supergroup has been hot-shotted?
No, I don't think it's been hot-shotted. I just think that it's missed why they were getting together in the first place. Yeah. Like the Undisputed Kingdom were not mentioned in this promo. That's the reason these two groups are coming together. Right. The reason why Max Caster was pitching they come together is to win more gold, and that's not what the group was originally supposed to be about. It was supposed to be about taking out Taven, Bennett, Strong. Like, why aren't we building to the Kingdom, as in Taven, Bennett, and Strong, going after the trios titles? Strong's going after the national title. Put Wardlow in there. Wardlow's not going to be going for the world title at the next pay-per-view, because that's probably going to be the triple threat with Strickland and
Wardlow was involved.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, we had them on Dynamite with, like, Adam Cole cutting a promo on Wardlow's behalf, saying I'm coming for the world championship. But like it's like they've lost so much of their steam, and because they've lost their steam, it feels like these two groups have lost their steam, and now they've sort of lost like why we were getting together in the first place. That's where I think ultimately I think this is a good thing, as I think this will be very entertaining. Bullet Club Gold were fantastic on Wednesday as baby faces, which I did not see coming. The Guns in particular were superb. Jay White really nasty bastard heel Jay White really shocked me at how good at being babyface he was. So I think there's great stuff that could be had with this, but it needs to be part of the larger picture of taking out the Undisputed Kingdom, as opposed to let's win some more gold belts together.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them in this company that we could win. We should just win them.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
And I think that does speak to the lack of focus, I think, in the booking that has just sort of been a hallmark of this particular era. I don't think it's unfixable.
Certainly not.
It just is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get into what you made of this when I find where the UltraChat document is, and now I've got it. And James here says, Bang Bang Scissor Gang is here. At the end of this, we'll have a unified 6-person championship. Jay White will be a bigger heel, and Daddy Ass and the Ass Boys will be reunited. Looking forward to the new format. Hopefully Collision doesn't get bumped anymore. Well, it also get bumped on Mondays when there are AEW pay-per-views. Or possibly when there are NXT pay-per-views if there's something big on them. Or, hey, people actually quite enjoyed the TNA review we did last week.
Hey, TNA, big time.
So, possibly depends.
Yeah.
It's more of the... It's up in the air. Monday's a bit more fluid, guys. A bit more flexible.
With a bit of,
It's a bit more fluid, you guys.
A bit casual.
Oh, so cash. It's such a cash Monday.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like the idea of Billy Gunn and the Ass Boys getting back together. I think that's quite fun. I don't know if that's the end goal in this. That's the other thing that should have felt like a big deal in this segment. Is Billy Gunn and his
kids reunited.
Papa and his kids reunited. His kids turned on him.
Yeah.
Like, it should be more around that.
It's I mean, let it play out. Would be my keywords.
Ben Z here says, not really a Collision guy, so instead I'll go on about WWE 2K24, which just got announced. Cody is the cover star and special guest referee matches are back, which is cool, but dear God, the trailer is awful. I'll likely see AI Hogan and Austin in my nightmares.
Have you seen it yet?
No. So I got a text during the WrestleTalk Extra record from 2K being like, oh, by the way, we've just announced that WWE 2K24's dropped. And then I had a message from Pete on Discord being like, 2K24 announcement just dropped. It's out on this day. So not only in that half an hour gap where I had to eat lunch and finish watching Collision, I was like, I need to organize my chats with 2K and what we're doing with 2K stuff. Because, March 8th will be here before we know it.
It'll sneeze and it'll be here. I mean, I am all for it. It's the Rhea and Bianca deluxe edition cover that's got me. I'm a big fan of that one. I think that looks great.
Only seen because I got the press release through from 2K additionally to everything else. That only one I've seen is the WrestleMania 40 cover that's got all of the legends on it.
So you got standard edition Cody looking off into the distance. You got Bianca and Rhea on the deluxe edition, and then you got the legends. The 40, the legacy thing. They're all great. I think they all look great. The trailer is also really fun, really nice. I completely agree about AI Hogan though.
What do you mean by AI Hogan?
Well, what makes it? I mean, AI is probably here. AI.
I tell you what, you can get some live reactions from me.
AI here is probably being used in the incorrect manner. It's probably just CGI that look. But Hogan looks different to Austin and Undertaker. Basically, they're in situ in their era, saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this, brother."
Oh, whoa! Oh, whoa!
There's
whoa! Oh, I did not expect that.
It's not very nice, is it?
Whoa! That looks great. The gameplay stuff looks wicked. That looks awesome.
The stuff with Cody especially is tasty. It was just a bit of a jump scare with the Hogan stuff.
It's because his face is so massive.
Yeah.
And then your Nightmare Pack has got Superstar Billy Graham, Dusty, Stardust, and Dashing Cody Rhodes.
Yeah.
Not only that, with Pharaoh as a manager.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so it's that's a My Faction card thing.
Love that.
And Mattel Cody Rhodes. One of my favorite things in 2K23 is they had Mattel John Cena as an unlockable character.
Did they?
Yeah, it's John Cena as an action figure.
I didn't unlock that. I have Super Cena where he's invisible.
Yeah, no, it's John Cena as like the Mattel action figure.
Incredible.
John Cena is very funny because he moves about as realistically as John Cena does.
Yeah,
because John Cena's. You see, the joke there is that John Cena's very robotic in the way that he moves around the ring. Yeah. He moves like an action figure. I was saying this on WrestleTalk Extra today. He does move like an action figure, but with very few points of articulation.
But no, to the chatter's point, it was fun. It was a good little trailer. I'm very excited for the game.
Let's get into the rest of Collision, which opened with Jon Moxley versus Shane Taylor. And boy howdy, they had a hard-hitting affair where they absolutely twatted each other.
They really did.
And it was awesome.
They beat the tar out of each other.
I loved it. And they were putting over on commentary as well that the BCC have got some questions to answer, because all three of them lost to Eddie Kingston in the Continental Classic, which is kind of there to set up what happens in the main event of this show. I enjoyed this a lot.
I did too. I thought it did what it needed to do. Shane Taylor looked good as well.
I'm a big Shane Taylor fan.
Yeah, big time.
Nice guy.
Maybe we should have won the ROH TV title instead of Samoa Joe just putting it on the floor. But
didn't want Joe losing before going to be, because they decided, like, I think the report is they decided 4 months before it happened that he was winning the world title. So don't want your guy losing a match before he then wins the world title. You want to keep building someone up.
Yeah,
because wins and losses do matter, Dan.
They do matter, but so do title belts in theory, and just putting one on the floor.
Maybe one of them doesn't.
That one.
If you've got 16, Dan, you can sacrifice one of them.
But no, the match itself was really good, and I liked Moxley's promo afterwards.
Yeah, he's pissed off.
Yeah,
he's not taking crap anymore. Step up or keep the hell up. Like, it's very good.
What was really interesting to me was how, and we'll talk about it when we get to the main event, how in contrast this was to Danielson and Claudio, because he was big old babyface energy here, or at least anti-hero, I'm going to fight people energy. And the rest of the BCC were having a right old healing it up situation.
Danielson, he hates Eddie so much.
He loved it.
Yeah, it's so great.
But yeah, I thought it was a great promo. Makes me excited to want to see more of Moxley, which, I haven't, honestly, I know that's, I have sort of been a bit colder on Moxley recently. So this was a nice reminder.
I'm only like on a bit of a Moxley mode because his match with Shingo at the most recent New Japan show, the one in San Jose, was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was better than Ospreay versus Okada. I'm going to say it. But then again, I also thought that Eddie versus Gabe Kidd was better than Okada versus Ospreay. Yeah, I'll say it. I thought it was. And I thought the double count out was awesome. And it made me really want to see their rematch.
Well, there you go.
We've got a recap of Samoa Joe versus Hook from Dynamite, which I still think holds up as one of the best matches of 2024. Loved it so much. And then we got Adam Copeland versus Dante Martin. Very good near fall off his little springboard moonsault that he does, which is his finish. But like he just slightly over-rotated it and got Copeland up in the ropes. I thought it was good. And then Copeland hit the spear out of nowhere for the finish.
It was a great spear as well.
Very good spear.
Taking him out of the air was lovely.
Yeah. Tony Schiavone interviewed Copeland after the match, who said, I was like, it's getting harder and harder each week, actually. Maybe this Copeland thing was a bad idea. And he also noted that veterans aren't stepping up for this. Like, I laid out an open challenge for anyone, but veterans aren't taking this. There's actually these younger guys that are stepping up, and that's good because that's what we want to do. I want to come in and work with these younger guys. It's funny enough, it's what Christian said when he came here, and he's also not doing that anymore. And I promise that the next time I'm here in Pittsburgh, I will be the TNT champion.
I found this little promo quite interesting, and I especially found it interesting as well. There was some more bizarre Twitter discourse about whether or not wrestling should or should not be fun. They were being like, you should keep him off TV.
This is why I deleted it.
Honestly. But as they were saying, like, you should keep...
you just have to say things on Twitter these days. You just have to say things.
The discourse is mental on everything. But the argument was that, like...
Who's got that 1989 wrestling clip?
He got us all about that interaction.
You just got to say anything these days.
The point was, he was saying, and I don't agree with this. This is not me bringing... This is the opposite. Is basically, he said, you should keep Copeland off TV and make him a special attraction. Here he is just having rando matches with rando upstart kids or whatever. And then someone was like, well, he's having fun doing it and it's getting people over, and it's like, whatever. And then the response was, wrestling is a serious thing. It shouldn't be fun. And I was like, get out of town with this nonsense, because this for me is the prime use of Adam Copeland. I think the Cope Open, while stupidly named, is brilliant in allowing Adam Copeland to feel refreshed. You know, he'd sort of done everything he could. He'd even come back after a 10-year injury over in WWE. He gets to work with a whole new set of people and some familiar faces as well, and then really help get people's reps in. You know, I think, which is a good thing to do.
Absolutely,
on TV.
Yeah.
And then later on in the night, a little announcement of a little match that feels designed for Tempest.
Right, I know. They announced at the end of this show, and it was like, oh yeah, here's what's coming up on Dynamite. You've got Penta versus Hangman. Oh yes, please. Oh, that sounds really great. Jeff Hardy versus Swerve Strickland. Oh man, Jeff Hardy making it onto Dynamite. He's made out of the little Rampage hole. That's exciting. No, Swerve on TV. That's gonna be really good. Yeah. Oh, we get to hear from Sting and Darby Allin. Always love to hear that because we'll feud with the Young Bucks. That's really good. Oh, and Adam Copeland versus Minoru Suzuki.
Yeah. Talking about veterans not taking the...
That's it, the Cope Open.
What's it called? The bait.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And also just, again, even without having the belt, even without the belt being on TV, putting over wanting to have that belt back off Christian, keeping that going. Mm-hmm. You know, I think there were a lot of people who were like, was it rushed into in a bunch of different ways? No. You know, these things can grow over time. This is a good example, if I may, of build.
I'm going to also say as well, because I don't think I've actually said this on a podcast yet, loved their World's End match.
It was great.
And the angle afterwards I thought was fantastic.
I think I remember feeling that the angle could have been done slightly differently, but really enjoying myself with it.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Lexi was backstage with the Blackpool Combat Club, and Danielson, he was so great in this. He was like, Eddie Kingston beating me was a low point in my career, but you know what? That's okay. Because it was the highest point in his career. Yeah. It's the highest that he'll ever get to. And Claudio then's like, I'm so sick of talking about Eddie Kingston. Ortiz, you're just a friend of Eddie Kingston, and that means you're now a casualty. Yeah. And he just walks off.
I really like these interview segments as just simple promo stuff.
Yep. And then we had Lexi interviewing Dante Martin, but Private Party walk in and they set up a rematch between the two of them. Private Party playing off, hey, you know, the finish on Dynamite, like, I wasn't cheating. I just sort of fell into the ropes a little bit. We don't know. It could have gone either way.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
The thing about these interview segments is that I don't often have anything to say too much from them, but I think they really do a very good job of carrying things on with a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
You know.
Thunder Rosa took on Queen Aminata next. This is Rosa's first singles match since early 2022, Yikes. And she got the win here. Aminata was given it a lot and looked really good.
I think Aminata does it great. I think the style she works with, I think the performance when she comes out at the beginning and has...
She's got presence about her.
Exactly that. There's a presence. There's the facials. She often does very little things with the facials. I'm very high on Queen Aminata. I'm a big fan of the whole... the whole gimmick, and lovely to see Thunder Rosa back in such style, because I you know, I'm a little bit not au fait with all of the backstage tea or whatever, but it does sometimes seem to me that she got a little bit of a bad rub.
She did. I believe that it all got squashed over,
Yeah.
though, and I think that her and Britt Baker sort of made up. They had a chat, they hashed things out, and they sort of smoothed over what, the cracks that were there in a bit of a fractured division.
So I hope that this is an opportunity now for her to sort of get a bit of reclamation back, because I think she's right good, and I thoroughly enjoyed this match very much. There was the headbutt from Queen Aminata at one point.
Yeah.
I felt it,
However, my favorite promo on this show was Eddie Kingston and Ortiz. Just cutting this promo, and Ortiz was there to actually do a wrestling promo. You see, Blackpool Combat Club, you're not like us, because we're family and families sit together. Yeah, sure, we bicker at times, but we stick together, and we're going to be taking you out tonight. Eddie Kingston, he ain't got time. He's like, why are you always coming out to me? I've got to get my reps in. I've got to try and stretch out. I've got a big match tonight. I haven't got time to talk to you. Play Rocket Man or whatever it is, and off he walks.
That's his fault for not scheduling properly. You're going to have to do some interview time. If you've not done your reps in too soon. Once again, Eddie Kingston being the worst human being in the world.
It's not his fault that Eddie Kingston is the best wrestler in WWE right now. Toni Storm also cut a promo. This was actually from Dynamite, and they showed it here. And she finally admits she does know who Deonna Purrazzo is. I remember our time. I remember our time in Japan. I remember our time in the dojos. And she agrees to a match, and then she's going to eat her, or she's going to beat her, and then eat her. And that reminds her she then needs to go and have her pork dinner.
So now she's being Hannibal Lecter. She's moved on from Norma Desmond, and she's moved on to Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Shout out to Mariah May in this segment, who I thought was fantastic.
You can do a lot with just standing in the background. I think, yeah,
absolutely. Taking those notes from watching the New Age Outlaws promos when Triple H was on top in 2000, which standing in the back, menacing, like, I'm X-Pac, I'm menacing.
X-Pac's never been menacing. Take that back right now.
This, up next, probably the match of the night. Holy heck, is that I love this match. Buddy Matthews versus Daniel Garcia. They had, both Malachi Black and Brody King out with Buddy Matthews. Daniel Garcia comes out on his own. Daddy Magic is out there on commentary. But before, anyone can ever, do anything, out come FTR to even up the numbers so they can sort of cancel out House of Black on the other side. And they were fantastic out on the ring apron. I thought Daddy Magic was superb on commentary, getting over sort of the magic of this, no pun intended. Buddy Matthews was awesome in this match.
What else is new?
Daniel Garcia was fantastic. He was so great here. This is a match that is a great follow-up from the C2. It's learning things from and it's using... Because towards the end of the C2, there were people in our live chat and in our UltraChats that were like, I don't see the point of the end game of the C2 because you've got a bunch of people, or 3 people who've lost loads. Like, why should I care about what they do now? It was like, well, in the final match, Daniel Garcia beat Brody King. As the only match he won in the C2. And that's now fueling this feud that he's got with FTR and the House of Black and the character progression that he's made from there.
I also think that's a really interesting angle to have on the C2 in the middle of it, because for me with it, it was always the idea that one of the things I did that I think made it so great was that right at the beginning, Eddie Kingston says, I'm betting on myself, putting on my belts on the line. That's your first story. And then over the course of the C2, other stories start picking up, like how is Roosh doing, what Swerve got going on, all the rest. This was Danielson's thing. Is he going to do okay? And the thing with Danny Garcia especially was so compelling for me was this idea of get serious, this idea of becoming a good, all-round wrestling figure. How are you doing it kind of thing. And that has continued apace to the point where now it was a non-televised promo where Tony Khan's going, he's one to watch, but I don't need that non-televised promo to tell me, because I'm seeing it in the material. I'm seeing it in the work that he's doing, and I think it's a really smart way of using something like a ranking system, like a C2, like the more sports centric approach that says, okay, well, I did well last season, didn't get everything I wanted to, what am I going to do going forward? How do I make it so that the next time there's a C2, if I get to enter it, I could get a chance to get in the final, or at some point, I'm going to be able to go for an international title, a TNT title, all that kind of thing. So this is sick.
On top of that, his Dragon Tamer is becoming the death of him, more or less, in a way, because it's one of the reasons he lost 2 of his matches. He lost his match to Andrade, and he lost another one of his, because they managed to not avoid the Dragon Tamer, but find a way to get out of his submission move and use that against him. And it happened again here. And that's why I thought Daddy Magic was so great on commentary. Because eventually he manages to get the Dragon Tamer in, And immediately, Matt Menard's like, it's in too deep, it's in too deep, he's in too deep again. And Buddy Matthews was able to escape out of it. It's not learning from the mistakes that he's making, and that's what people keep trying to instill into him. Is, yes, you beat Bryan Danielson with this move, but also it is leading to you getting some losses. I mean, he got a win here, but you could have got it elsewhere. And there's at the start of this match, there was a great moment in this, is when he was trying to do the body check thing with Buddy Matthews, but Buddy was just stronger than him. So he'd run against the ropes and he'd fall down and he'd get frustrated. And he's like, no, I can do this. Get up, run against the ropes, fall back down again and get more frustrated. At one point, he rolls to the outside, smacks the mat, and he's so angry. And Dax and Cash just grab him and says, look, you're not stronger, you're smarter. Out wrestle him. You're not stronger, you're smarter. I'm like really trying to deal that home. He gets in and he just runs the rope a few times and then he gets a body block and gets him down. He's like, yeah, I'm learning. I'm trying to be smarter than this. And then he proceeds to out wrestle him.
It's so rare that we get this kind of character in wrestling kind of thing. They're either meant to be completely there or they're just sort of there to feed to other people. This idea of watching a character evolve in many ways, to grow, to learn, is something that we like. It's Karate Kid stuff. It's what makes those kind of movies where you take a character and you watch their progression. Like even like Harry Potter, you stretch it, he becomes a better wizard because he starts learning this doesn't work and this does work, kind of thing. That's what we as audience members, and at the end of the day, wrestling, however you present wrestling, and there are so many different ways that you can, it is a storytelling medium, it is character driven. This is one of the best sort of archetypes to go with. And I really like it.
This match was awesome. And also, Buddy Matthews' knees.
Buddy Matthews is never given the credit Buddy Matthews deserves, which is funny because he gets a load of credit. You know what I mean?
When he was in WWE, he was that guy that was like, I wish they'd push him more, they'd push him more. And then he went to AEW and everyone was like, yes, getting it. This is where he's going to shine. And I don't think he's had it in AEW either. But every time he's put out there, dude just has killer matches.
Every time I know it's a Buddy Matthews match, I know it's going to be great. Like whether or not he's, I think he's the secret MVP of the group.
100%.
Think of the Andrade ladder match.
Yeah,
is the one that was one of my matches last year.
I loved this. I thought this was so great. In the end, Daniel Garcia gets a technical roll up, smarter not stronger, and he got the win. And then a very chaotic brawl happened afterwards because House of Black immediately dive in and start putting the boots to Garcia. FTR jump in, locker room empties, but not stars, like, you know, it's the righteous. It's the righteous, and it's you know, these lads, they come out there, they break up, they have this pretty wild and chaotic brawl, and afterwards FTR challenge House of Black next week on Collision to a elimination cage match, 6-on-6 elimination cage match.
I didn't vibe with all of the people from the back coming in to sort of get involved. Primarily, as you say, because I don't really know who these people are, but also because why do they care? Why do they want to break up this brawl? Surely they're like stand at the back with a coffee going, let them fight, I don't give a crap. The producers, I understand, they're like, oh no, our investments, we must keep them safe.
Yeah.
But that part I didn't really get. One thing you can't deny, though, the audience did, because they were really hot for it. This kind of brawl thing was really fun. And then how many cage matches have AEW done? I don't feel like it's many.
It's in I think it's 4 or 5. This might be like the 5th one.
Because there's a brevity to it. Because how many cage matches have I seen in my life as a wrestling fan? Very, very many. But when FTR says, in a cage match, I went, oh, how exciting. If you can make a cage match seem really exciting, you've done a very good job.
It's one of AEW's strengths, I think, is that they have held back on some stipulations to make them feel that they are a big deal.
And it did. And I think that's really effective. Yeah.
We then got Roderick Strong versus Matt Sydal. Roddy won. Just here to do more of that Orange Cassidy feud. And it was a sprint that I quite enjoyed.
It was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
They were selling really hard the idea of them as their history and whatever, but
I got it, and I particularly enjoyed this idea of, like, you know, in 2005, these were sort of seen as the future of, you know, the style. Because people weren't really doing the style that Roddy and Matt were doing. Now it's kind of the template, and these are the forefronts of this. They were the forefront of change, like WWE are in Saudi Arabia. They were the forefront of change in terms of in-ring style. They put this over with Matt Sydal a lot. A lot of the moves that people do now were made by Matt Sydal and popularized by Matt Sydal.
Yeah. Jim Cornette somewhere stewing.
Yeah.
But, I
just funny because he was booking them in Ring of Honor as well.
I found it kind of there's a negative take on that where it's like, yeah, well, that was 20 years ago, and Fat Lot of Good that did them kind of thing. But then also there was a monopoly in the industry, so it's like not necessarily their fault. It was a weird, I don't know, I didn't really fully connect to what they were trying to sell me in this one. The match was fine, it was good, but like I didn't really buy it.
Yeah.
Especially tying into what you were talking about earlier on with the relative success of Undisputed Kingdom.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's the bigger thing for me. It's less the in-ring style and more just Kingdom just not vibing at the moment. And then we had our main event. It was Eddie Kingston and Ortiz versus Danielson and Claudio. And this match was so awesome. This match ruled. Every single person in this match ruled. The finish ruled. All of the action ruled. Nigel McGuinness ruled.
Yeah.
It's so great. You had Eddie and Brian like at the start of this just playing up to the crowd. Claudio not even looking at Eddie, and they were putting. I was like, Claudio can't even look at Kingston. He's just got his head down, not looking at Eddie getting this adulation because it's annoying to Claudio Castagnoli that people like Eddie Kingston. And Daniel Bryan because I'm reviewing a 2014 show over on WrestleTalk Extra. Bryan Danielson is playing to the crowd, and Nigel McGuinness goes, "Typical Danielson. He doesn't even want to wrestle Eddie Kingston. That's why he's trying to delay all this because he knows that he'll get beaten if he tries again."
So complicated for Nigel McGuinness to be hating the demonstrably heel Bryan Danielson. They should be aligned, but he can't ever let it go, and I love that.
And liking Eddie Kingston, because he shouldn't like Eddie Kingston either, and I don't think he does.
No.
But as much as he doesn't like Eddie Kingston, he hates Bryan Danielson more.
The enemy of the enemy is my friend. I think what I loved about this, I think they didn't touch each other for ages, but Eddie Kingston seemed to be having fun with the whole thing, and especially because his pop was so much louder.
Yeah.
That it really gave it a lovely big main event spice to it.
Absolutely, yeah. This was just so great. I mean, kind of one of the keys to this match, though, is that during this match, not only did they go like, oh, by the way, Tony Khan's just announced the rankings are back, and two, they were like, oh, by the way, Adam Copeland's facing Minoru Suzuki on Dynamite on Wednesday, and then the match ends, and I was like, Craig, there was a lot that happened within this match.
Yeah.
Not just between the four ropes, or the four corners and everything, but also company-wide as well. But I really enjoyed it because they beat the piss out of poor Ortiz for ages.
Yeah, it was great stuff.
And then they made their big return, a big comeback, and they both did dives to the outside, which was really, really cool because I love seeing Ortiz. I'm missing Ortiz wrestle like this. Seeing Eddie Kingston do a dive is pretty spectacular as well. And the crowd was so into it. But the finish was so brutal because Danielson is beating down Ortiz, beating him down and beating him down. And Claudio just gets Eddie up onto the apron and just holds him there and makes him watch. And Bryan Danielson does the stompies, goes to the corner, mockingly does the yes chant, hits the Busaiku knee, gets the pin, and then he's just staring at Eddie, and he spits in his face, and he said, "You're not going to hold those titles anymore." Danielson is actively annoyed and irritated. His whole thing earlier where he was like, yeah, sure, it was a low point in my career, but it was the highest point in any career. It doesn't bother me. Has bothered him. It's bothered him that the king of the bums has beaten him in the C2 and he's now holding the Continental Championship. That doesn't make sense to Bryan Danielson. Doesn't make sense to Claudio Castagnoli either because he hates Eddie Kingston. And that's what's fueling him. It's more stuff that's coming out of the C2 and giving honestly, it's the first time the title has felt like quite relevant since Eddie's won the thing because he's been battling it over like lower mid-card guys. Now he's back against someone who was in the C2, someone he did beat in the C2, and they're using that to fuel this feud. I loved this so much.
Yeah, I also think this is what's tying me into the Mox promo at the beginning. So interesting that they're playing so openly, actively heel, especially Danielson, who for last year I was confused about, well, Danielson's very babyface and the rest of the BCC are quite clearly heel, including Jon Moxley, and now we're almost in a complete 180 position, and it's because Danielson is so good.
Danielson, he said this before, because I remember once we did a thing like when he, shortly after Revolution, where he sort of like, he turned heel and stuff, and he's made this point, he's like, I never turned babyface.
Right.
It's like, when they had the two tunnel things, like, I always came out the heel tunnel.
Yeah.
Like, I've never really been a babyface in AEW. I've always just been Bryan Danielson. And he can just do that switch of just being like, yeah, I'm going to be the good guy this time.
Yeah.
And now, I'm going to be the bad guy because you've done something that's really annoyed me. So you've now got this side of Danielson.
There's a justification to it as well. And it all feels very like cohesive, and it just speaks to the talent, but also it speaks to how over Eddie Kingston is, like, with the AEW fan base specifically, that they are more than willing to boo Bryan Danielson, or at least engage with the heel behavior that he's, because at the end of the day, we're giving the reaction he wants. I think a lot of us, especially us, like to be involved, and we're like, yeah, the heels, and we, you know what I mean, we like, there's always been a thing of, I was reading Brian Gewirtz's book, and he was talking about how he liked to boo, he liked to cheer like Roddy Piper or whatever. He always liked to, there's something about a specific type of wrestling fan that likes cheering their heels, almost because we get it, we appreciate the work you're doing. So for the fans to like Eddie Kingston enough to actively engage with what Bryan Danielson's trying to achieve, I think is it speaks to the quality of everybody in the match.
I love
those chops were silly.
This is the
I don't like the machine gun chops.
I mean, I get why he does it.
Oh, I get why he does it, but I know they do look like they hurt.
I was gonna say I wouldn't.
I've done this to myself for a while. I was like, those are stupid. Ow. And I'm not Eddie Kingston.
Yeah.
But it was it. There's something where I'm like, can you just? I'm only saying it because I saw them do the rounds a lot, and I was like, Claudia could just deck him one. You know, when like if I'm doing this to you at some point, I'm going, get off.
My wife says that about the waitress's Christmas song. The reason why she hates it is it feels like someone's going, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. But I think I'll miss this one this year.
That's what those chops are to me.
Eddie Kingston lives rent-free in wrestling Twitter's head.
Oh, yeah.
He is one of the best people in AEW, and Twitter cannot stand that. And it blows their minds that people like Eddie Kingston.
Yeah.
And I love it. And like, perhaps this is trolling behavior out of me, but seeing people, like, this is the one thing I did see on Twitter. I had to log in this morning because I had to check my DMs, and I did see this. People having a meltdown over Eddie Kingston doing quite good chops is
I don't think they were quite good, though.
I wouldn't want to take him, dude. And
that's different.
But also, you watch that clip out of context, you watch it within the rest of the match, they don't look like that. It's all about the context of things. It's the same thing about, like, so someone had a go at, because they were showing a clip of Psychosis and Rey Mysterio, and someone was like, oh, well, yeah, this is better than Vikingo versus Omega because no one was standing out in the ring for 20 seconds waiting for someone to do a spot. And it was like, yeah, because you're watching a highlights package where all of that's cut out.
That's fair.
Like, in this, like, Eddie, it's
everything removed from context.
Everything removed from context does affect things. But even if they looked naff, even if they looked like the worst chops in the world, seeing people having a meltdown over it brings me such joy.
I don't think it's worth a meltdown. Yeah, I agree
because
with
it's
that.
not worth a meltdown.
Yeah.
But people just cannot stand this idea that people like Eddie Kingston, and that's delightful because they're like getting so stewed over and angry about this is delightful.
I like Eddie Kingston,
in
spite of popular belief. Those chops look gash. But that's my point. But yeah, like you're right when you take things out of context, especially in the context of something that I thought in this match was a great match.
I guarantee you the people angry about that did not watch the match.
No, almost certainly not. But that's that's why their opinion is less
garbage.
Important than ours. But no, I overall
they're garbage people. I'll say it.
I'm moving on from the garbage people who are absolutely garbage people, just to say that it speaks to the connection. I think what were we talking about a lot last year with the idea of like casuals and what's AEW's direction and who should they be catering to? It's really great that this audience has responded so well to Eddie Kingston, and they are leaning heavily into that in the story.
If people were clipping out Kabashi chops, and there'd be people who would have probably the same reaction.
Oh, I did go then and watch it.
And like those people are morons.
Okay. I did watch a collection of those, and they look a lot better. But
they do look better. I'm not saying that Eddie Kingston's chops are on par with Kabashi's, because they're not. Because like he was one of the best to ever do it. But they're also just not as bad as some people are making them out to be.
Yeah, but that's the internet.
That's the internet.
Yeah.
This is why I try and avoid. It annoys me. Like honestly, I'm putting a plea out to that. If you do contact me via Twitter DM, please find a different method so I just don't have to go on there.
Give your number out, haven't I?
Find me on Instagram. Please just get me on there. But anyway, that was the show, and I had a good time with it.
Yeah,
it's missable television, but it's missable in a way that I would recommend you go out and watch a few of the matches.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to watch all 2 hours.
No.
But you definitely should watch Garcia versus Matthews. And you should definitely watch that main event.
Yeah. I spotted an ultra chat that I want to save my response
to
what you're saying for that, because they bring up a point. And
Well, let's get into those UltraChats. WrestleTalk.com/support. Get in all of them. We'll read out all of them above the $5 amount. And Urkto here says, in my opinion, most of the complaints come from people following WWE mostly and want AEW to be that. AEW should do their own thing, which in my opinion is what they are doing, with focus on wrestling, win-loss records. Also, I feel like Okada will meet Moxley at Revolution. By the way, I got rid of Twitter and it helped my mental health. But it feels amazing watching wrestling without Twitter discourse, which 99.9% of the time is stupid as F. By the way, Edge versus Suzuki and Hangman versus Penta, wrestling is awesome. Hey, I mean, that's kind of, I got it for my mental health as well. And yeah, without Twitter discourse.
Yeah, it's also, to move it away from wrestling, it's stupid in film Twitter as well. It's absolutely insane. Saltburn's a good film. If you don't like it, you don't like it, end of. But do you know what it has been golden for? The traitors. The memes for the traitors after every episode are golden. It almost makes me remember back in the day when it used to be a more fun place. But I think what I was going to bring up in response to you was what this chat said, which is that it's from people following WWE mostly and want AEW to be that. I do think there is a middle ground. I don't think, like I said, there's so many different ways to present wrestling. I think WWE does its style really well. Well, sometimes I think AEW does its style really well. Sometimes there's Lucha Underground, there's TNA, like all of there's no one way to do wrestling. There's only your interpretation of the medium. In the same way, there's no one way to do a film. Mm-hmm. I feel I would like, when I'm watching Collision, I want a little more of a hook. No pun intended. I want something that's when Dynamite has enough to make me go, oh, next week I want to sit down and watch that. You know, I want more than just, I know I can tune in and see a good wrestling match that will make someone then cut a promo afterwards, and maybe in 2 or 3 pay-per-views time they'll have a title match. I want a hook. I want something to bring me in and really make it feel like appointment viewing. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to go WWE direction. I don't think it should. Let AEW be AEW. For me, for a long time, that hook was the C2. That's what I'm after, I think.
I mean, it's a damned if they do, damned if they don't scenario in a way. And I think this is kind of the point that Tony Khan often makes on Twitter, is just like, I can't do any rights because people keep telling him, stop being like WWE or stop trying to be a WWE light. So he puts on this show that's very like AEW, and people are like, well, where's the stories? Like, so it's like, oh, well, do you want me to do stories or do you want me to do wrestling? So they kind of have a best of both worlds. Dynamite is the story show and Collision is the wrestling show. So you get whatever you want out of AEW in that sense.
I think you can have both.
And I think they do.
I think they have in the past with this show.
Yeah, and I think they do have both to a degree. I don't think you need to separate out the shows. But also, Collision is a show that's destined to fail because it's on Saturday nights, which is the other part of the Collision equation. I was writing a script for the WrestleTalk News that I was going to do as a deep dive, which was called AEW's Collision Problem and Why It Will Never Be Solved, which I'd still like to write, or maybe I'll do it for WrestleTalk magazine. Collision ratings patterns are fascinating because they just do this. They go up, and then a WWE pay-per-view happens, and they go down. And then spend the next 3 weeks climbing back up, and then a WWE pay-per-view happens, and they crash back down. And then they spend the next 3 weeks climbing back up, and then a WWE show happens, and they crash back down. They will never be able to get out of this cycle, because WWE pay-per-views will always be on Saturdays.
Yeah.
And because it's a Saturday show and ratings are not going to be as strong on a Saturday show, you almost don't want to do all these big angles and stuff. Like, really, the show was destined to fail from the get-go because it's on Saturdays. And that's something you can't escape from. So you don't want to do massive angles on a Saturday because then people will have a go at you for doing it on the show that no one watches. It'd be like doing it on Rampage. But you do want to do these things on Rampage because you want to try and get people to watch these shows. Damned if you do, it's damned if you don't.
I'd be really interested to see if the rankings return makes an impact in how I feel about Collision, because I feel like, I think my point that I keep trying to drive home is that it's not about doing massive stories. It's just about giving me enough of something where I'm like, this feels like if I miss this, it'll be a shame. Whereas, like, as we said at the beginning, I'm all right to wait till Monday kind of thing. I don't wake up worrying about Collision spoilers. I wonder if it's like, hey, I need a big win to push me over in the rankings, and it's happening on Saturday. That might change it a little bit. And that feels like a very AEW thing.
It was the Adam Cole and MJF going for the tag titles was one of those where I'm like, I need to watch this the following day. And the C2 gave me that as well. I think next week, the cage match will probably... I will want to watch that the following day.
Good shout.
I'll tell you exactly what will happen with the ratings, with the rankings rather, because this is exactly what happened the first time round. People on Twitter will say it's too complicated. That's exactly what happened the first time they did this. People were like, I don't get it. Why are you doing this? I don't get it. And that's what they did. That's what they did with the C2. It's too complicated. I don't get it.
Maybe we just have 4 finals. Can't solve it. 2024, same as the old year.
Damn. Barkwild 4 says, given its roster size, if AEW are wasting even an hour of television not presenting their wrestlers to the fullest of their potentials, then TK is doing everyone a disservice. This is what happened with Rampage and caused some negativity with the company. But I don't think it is doing these people a disservice. I don't think Moxley squashing Shane Taylor is doing him a disservice.
I also feel like squash is the wrong word for that particular match because Shane Taylor got a lot back. It's not like a Sunday Night Heat squash.
It's competitive squashes.
Yeah, right.
So that doesn't do Moxley a disservice.
The winner is never in question, but Shane Taylor looked good.
Yeah. It was Adam Copeland did not get a disservice by beating Dante Martin in the same way he wasn't done a disservice by beating Griff Garrison. Like, they do serve a purpose. It's not the most compelling TV, but it does serve a purpose. Particularly when you're bringing the ranking system back. We have a unknown username here. Please do get in your name to our moderators because there's a Streamlabs issue. It's lost your name. And it said, in my opinion, I think AEW could use a hard brand split. Having Joe as a floating champion, have the TNT, TBS, and Trios titles on Collision, with Danielson booking and, hear me out, put the ROH belts on back on Ring of Honor. Use the rankings to tell your stories. I'm against hard brand splits. I don't see the point of them. But that's also I've got a older wrestler mindset, and brand splits have never done it for me.
I've got a soft brand split. I like a soft brand split. I liked what was going on, whereas like I felt like I had my Collision guys and I had my Dynamite guys, and every now and again MJF would pop up every now and again. You know, I was.
Do you not think we still have that? Do you think that FTR and House of Black feel like Collision guys? La Faction feel like that.
I hate what I'm about to say, but I feel like the feeling's gone and needs to be restored. I'm going to cry about that later on with shame. No, I don't feel it as much as I did. Maybe that's a personal thing. I don't know. I do completely agree with the ROH belts being back in ROH thing.
Well, that's for darn sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, because they came out with those belts on and I went, why? The trios. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Particularly because I bet you they won't be defended on ROH TV, which will just annoy Kate over at Fightful. Because poor old her and Righteous Reg watching ROH Ninja was like, our champions are never here.
All we've got is Athena.
So Cardigan the Warm has said, if this has been mentioned already, please enjoy the $5. But shirt idea, a gold standard Bullet Club logo with an open scissor. Oh, I see. Yeah. So you could do the Bullet Club and then it's just a scissor in the middle. Like, instead of the skull.
That's funny.
Or you could do the skull with the scissor behind it.
Yeah.
That works. Travis Mengtalo has been a membug for 28 months in a row. Says, Copeland versus Suzuki on Dynamite. Yes, please. Who else would you like to see in the Cope Open?
Good question.
Carter.
Oh, that'll be a way to make a debut, to use it. But the thing is, if you're going to use this to continue your story with Christian and Edge. Sorry, Adam Copeland, my bad. That's 25 years. You don't want a Carter to lose.
Of course not.
And you don't want Copeland to lose either. So that's, fun as that would be, that needs to be after the TNT title has been won. Maybe that's the way you get, maybe Copeland's won the belt and it becomes the TNT Cope Open, and then Okada comes in and takes the belt off him.
Like, you got to do this for, like, to be able to do some of those dream matches that you never thought you'd get to see. Like, if you took in looking at New Japan, something like Adam Copeland versus Tomohiro Ishii. It's like, all right, yeah, I'd like that. Adam Copeland versus Speedball Mike Bailey.
Yeah. But these all feel like ones where it's like, it doesn't really hurt them if they lose to Copeland. I think
Okada's a very different story.
Yeah. The answer, I don't know, you know that, but the answer to your question there really is, what do you want the Cope Open to be? Because I think it could be, I don't know, like, what if Killswitch enters it as Luchasaurus? I don't know.
What I would like to see out of this is kind of what the senior US Open was, which is just like, it would. The best times on there were underutilized guys going out there and having awesome matches.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, that's kind of what I'd love to see out of this. Progressively each week they get bigger and longer matches. Christopher, who's been a member for 31 months in a row, says, "G'day, lads. I just want to say hello and thank you for all the hard work you do for us. Here's my money." Oh, thank you very much.
Thank
It's very
you for
kind
the
of you.
money.
And Martial Art here has said, it's that time of year again. All wrestling fans around the world are celebrating. Can you feel it? We're finally back on the road. That's right. The road to WXW 16 Karat Gold in Oberhausen, Europe's biggest wrestling festival.
The two festivals right there, don't they?
Don't they just? Maybe one year, Martial Arts, I'll go to a 16 Karat Gold. I would like to. I don't think it's going to happen this year with my young'un, but maybe one year I'll make the pilgrimage across.
Lucky.
We'll end the poll, see what you thought of this episode of Dynamite.
Collision.
Yep.
You said Dynamite. It's Collision.
73% thumbs up and 22% thumbs in the middle. I think that's about average. I think that's about fair.
On the show Gladiators, brackets 2024, brackets, on BBC One, there is a game called Collision.
Is there really?
A Gladiator called Dynamite. And another one called Nitro. It's very TNT coded.
Isn't it just?
Yeah.
Turns out they're big fans.
Looking over
at ITV, just jealous that they've got the rights to AEW.
Waiting for the new Gladiator to come out called Tony Khan.
How was this week's Gladiators? If you want to give it a quick review.
Oh my god, it was lit. It's the best show on television because it does it. They've got this. They did the wall, and it was everything I wanted it to be. One of the women just
the wall, brother.
Bombed it up. Oh my god, the Travelator section. The Eliminator looked like it was going to be a one-horse race, but then suddenly the Travelator got him, and the other guy caught up, and it became neck and neck all over again. They've got this new game called The Edge, where they have to. They're on the this like sky balance beam situation crosshatch thing. They've got to try and dodge the Gladiator and push him off. And then at one point the Gladiator fell down, and the woman was so excited that she's like, no, you still have to play the game to get your points. And oh no, she had to run across. It's the best show on TV.
Well, there you go. That is your AEW Collision / Gladiators review for this week.
That's the new format on Mondays.
We're back tomorrow to do the WWE Raw review. What is on the show tomorrow?
CM Punk and Cody Rhodes.
That's
I've been waiting all week for it. It's going to be an interesting little clash.
Got that. CM Punk and Cody Rhodes come face to face. Ivy Nile versus Valhalla. Chad Gable versus Ivar. And Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest.
I also think we're having Miz versus Dominic Mysterio. If I've not misread. Oh, yeah? We might be. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, that is coming up on the show tomorrow. Dan and I returning to this podcast set to review WWE Raw. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Please do press the subscribe button. Give us a little thumbs up as well. We are on our way to 85K. And when we get there, we'll be doing a 10-hour live stream. Thank you to everyone who's bought their tickets for our Royal Rumble watch party. Sold out!
Ooh, girl!
Sold out. We'll be seeing you next week. It's this week?
It's this Saturday.
It's this Saturday?
Yeah.
Royal Rumble's this Saturday, everyone, which also means it'll be Royal Rumble predictions this week as well. So make sure you are subscribed to this channel for all of those goings on. Until then, I've been Nico and DAD. That has been the Professor Dan Layton. Jam that jam.